Hi everyone, my name is Sergey. I'm an editor of the media in Ukraine called European Pravda, which means that we cover Europe. And I guess that my suggestions would be useful to you as for experts who are, as far as I know, are just starting their way as analysts and public analysts. Because in fact, these are two a bit different approaches. There are some analysts that work, for instance, I don't know, for CIA or for Pentagon, and no one knows who are them, and those people should remain in secret, and it doesn't matter for the public what they suggest. They combine their documents in a form that is let's say useful for their very narrow audience. And there are public analysts, those who are also work for a general audience, and those, as you, should also be recognizable. And it's very important to establish a link, a chemistry, I would say, not between you and particular journalist, but between you and journalistic community, journalistic circle in general. Because when you establish that kind of chemistry, you would be recognizable. That would mean that if someone, for instance, even donor or state institution, would consider who should we invite for some kind of activity, a person who is in media would appear in their mind in the first instance. And that is your task, to create yourself as this person who is let's say focused on particular issue and who is recognizable by a wide audience. And decision makers are normally also in this wide audience. So a few suggestions, or let's say not only a few suggestions, but even a few, let's say, approaches that can be useful to you. First of all, I would advise you to divide activity in two ways, in two mainstreams. One mainstream is video, another mainstream is text. These approaches or these dimensions are so much separate that you should treat them, you should prepare yourself for them very differently. You should speak differently. You should provide to those audiences, to those media, very different content. I'm very serious about that, because indeed you have behaved differently, you have to write differently, you have to prepare yourself differently for that audiences. I'm not sure if that will be correct to start from video, but I will try, because these are very much interconnected and I will have to switch. So let's try first video, then text, and I guess that then I will have to return. Well, the first domain, video. For video domain, you have to, first of all, you have to have study and recognition which deprives from the second domain, from text. So let's leave that aside. But then because you have to be invited to the TV channel, to popular YouTube channel for the first time. That is important, but this part is quite complex. Let's leave it aside. But again, once you are invited, you have to prepare yourself to be invited next time. For that, you have to know how it works and what do video persons, video journalists expect from you. First of all, let's not forget that we are in post-pandemic world. Despite now we are in post-pandemic, so it means that offline activity is returning. You have to be prepared for online comments and so on. During that pandemic, all TV production have learned to make video with experts online. That means that you have to have facilities at home, at office, wherever you are. You have to have normal camera camera with mic which works, or separate mic which provides you with decent quality, and you have to have light, which is really important. And sometimes experts do forget of that, and then, well, TV guys see that video which is really of bad quality, and well, next time they would not invite you. And second issue of, let's say, technical dimension is that please consider a background. I see that sometimes and often experts do use, particularly in Zoom, this blur, let's say, mechanism. That is the worst option. Just consider, if you represent your country, you have to have flag on backwards, or something like that, or an institution that you represent, something which indicates that institution, or I don't know. So background is important. Probably sometimes for some TV channels, replacement of the background works, but some TV channels do hate that. So please ask them. That is all about technical part. Then content part. TV production, YouTube production is a soundbite production, let's say. You have to know how to speak very shortly, making your content compressed in one phrase. Particularly it is important for TV channels, because for YouTube they are much more flexible. Sometimes YouTube channel invite experts for, I don't know, 15 minutes discussion. Sometimes it works, but on TV, especially on mainstream TV channels, you are limited sometimes in several seconds. You have to compress the idea you want to deliver in a short phrase. Think of it. Just try to I don't know, to train yourself, to study how good TV expert works. They usually provide you with sound bites. Short statement, short phrase with an idea you want to deliver. Forget of complex sentences. Complex sentences do not work for TV. Simply do not work. Journalists, I mean TV journalists, hate when there are, let's say, hero, either expert or politician, speaks complexly. Because complex sentences can work for analysis, for analytical papers, but not for TV. It is not recognizable it is not readable by viewer, because when you see TV as a TV, first of all, audience that looks TV is quite wide. Normally it is not focused on your subject, and then it is read differently. So sound bites, short sentences are very important. And again, depriving from the fact that TV audience is very wide, you have to explain an issue very simply. There is really a problem for many experts. I know many of them who are really very smart. They do know their subject, but they do not know how to explain anything in simple words. Because you have to catch the audience, which simply not know what your subject is. You should not operate with some terminology which is quite narrow, which people do not know about. And then, please study or please make yourself to simplify things, which is really a problem for many experts. Because if you're an expert, you know, particularly when you're asked about your subject, which you cover for years, you know about the subject everything. You have to dig into details. You can explain something very widely with some details. It is not needed. Please try to simplify. Sometimes this simplification can even be criticized by some colleagues core, let's say, in your also work in your area. But if you want to get hearts and minds, first of all, of your wide audience, and second, of the editor who will choose that quote, your quote, and who would consider whether he invites you for the next program or for the next record, there is important that he, she, they do understand you. Not your colleagues, not your fellow experts, but wide audience. That is almost all what I would like to say on TV production. Unfortunately, I don't have a feedback within this record, and maybe I would have to reply on some questions from the audience, but maybe later I would recall something. So let's switch to text. To get an invitation, let's say, from some TV publication, you have to get, let's say, initial recognition. How does it work in my case? I can consider that it can work differently in some different countries, but I guess that in many of countries that you arrived from, where you live in, the situation is similar to Ukrainian one. There are normally some journalists, or in particular some publications, some media, which are focused on a subject that you cover. And those media are like well read. In my case, that is quite easy. When it goes about EU-Ukraine approachments or future accession of Ukraine to the EU and NATO, my media, which is called European Pravda, is a leader of the market, let's say, and a lot of people do read that. And when someone from, I don't know, from TV channel would like to consider whom they would reply, or whom they would invite for the next broadcast on this topic, they will just look who is published in my media for about, I don't know, Romania, Hungary, the European Union, somewhere else. So please try to get a chance to be published in a publication which is well known in your country and which is well known for coverage of the specific topic. Sometimes it's better, or maybe in some countries it's better to seek and look for, not for a specialized media, but for media which has a public trust. I don't know, for instance, I can give you an example. In Moldova, if you find a way to be published in, I don't know, Newsmaker, or then, or in Zarul Garda, probably you would be noticed later for TV would invite you next time. So for media, for printed media, the approach is very much different from the TV one. For printed media, you have to be an expert. Please don't try to be an expert about everything. Good editors do hate that. Of course, sometimes you can cover, I don't know, from South Africa to international security and EU affairs. But, well, it doesn't work. You cannot be expert in everything. So I would suggest you to propose your, let's say, services to printed media, describing that, well, not like foreign affairs. Foreign affairs is not a topic. Foreign affairs is an area, very wide area. But you can propose something, I don't know, country specific or thematic specific. And particularly important to get acquainted with editor of this media and to propose some specific publication, like, for instance, something is happening in, I don't know, Hungary. which is in breach of your rules. And if you see that in news, and you can write an editor an idea, hey, John, or Sergey, or somewhere else, would you consider if I prepare an article on ways to punish Hungary for breaching EU rules? And one day or another you would have a positive answer. So then let's go to different types of article. And these are really also important. You, first of all, of course, you have to ask for your editor for suggestions or for rules that apply in this media, because in every media rules are very different, and that means that what I say now, it applies to my media, and it can be slightly different somewhere else. In my media, and in most of, there are at least two different types of publications. Well, not two, because there are much more. There could be, like, for instance, short news, which are not applicable for site experts. But site experts are invited to op-ed, or we call it column, but in other media it can be called differently. But mostly it is called op-ed, which allows you, as an author, as an expert, to express your thoughts, your ideas, to develop your identity there, to speak from the first person. I think my idea is that. My analysis shows that. Op-eds are normally proposed for those experts who are already well known, or at least known to the editor as a person who has some kind of expertise in this particular field. Because if you propose op-ed, then it means that you allow this person to express his or her position analysis and to create agenda for this particular media. Then we have also a type of publication which is called article. So the difference in my media is that in article you're not allowed to express yourself. You have to analyze. You have to analyze what is. So, for instance, you are provided with by an editor with a particular focus which is interesting for this media in current moments. Like, for instance, let's return to the examples that I have provided. Breach of the EU rules by Hungary. So the concrete media wants to have a publication or to have an article on that. Then you should not say there that Orban is a bastard and have to be thrown away from the EU. Sometimes some publications do accept that in article, but that is in common. Rather, you have to provide a full picture. Different sides. That this side says that Orban insists that the EU is a union of values which are Christian. But European Commission insists that Orban is wrong because the document EU treaty says that. And in this case, European Commission has higher value because they are imposed to treat what is written in the EU treaty. And then they can impose this fine, this, additional obligation, this limitation of rights, and so on and so on. Or they cannot impose because Poland supports Hungary and they would not allow to impose sanctions. So that is your role as an analyst to provide like a snapshot of current situation with indications or further developments of chances to create that or that or that. What is important to note when you create that kind of story? So first of all, it goes about an article, because that is the main, let's say, type of publication for you, for as far as I understand, junior analysts, or maybe those who are not that much experienced in this particular field. So you have to be relatively simple, much less simple than in the TV. In the TV, you have to catch hearts with soundbite, with one phrase. In publication, it is not that much important, and sometimes not important at all, to make short phrases. Here you can develop phrases. You can make long sentences. You can rely your speech, or for instance, not a speech. You can rely your article on something that you have written in the previous paragraph, let's say. So you can develop idea, writing something in the beginning, then referring to what you have written, then referring to the later, and so on and so on. So you can create a story, you can create an analysis, but this analysis should not be scientific. You also, even with longer sentences, you have to catch hearts of your audience as well. So it is not a TV audience, but audience of this written publication. What is suggested there? Particularly in media which are, let's say, popular or national, which are not specialized in particular issue, but also have to catch wider audience. There, I would suggest you almost on every topic to find some lively examples. So, for instance, if you are describing what is violated, let's stick to the examples that I follow in that video. So again, Orban. You should not write that Orban has violated provision of paragraph 3 of Article 2 of the EU Treaty. You should not even describe what is that Article 2 about. So yeah, of course you can, or maybe sometimes you have to describe. But also it is important to say, when migrants has flown up from Syria via Turkey, Greece and Serbia to the EU, many of them found themselves in Budapest railway station. And that time, in 2015, they found such an inhuman, let's say, conditions there, which were artificially created by Hungarian authorities, as described in European Parliament decision. So you refer to something, but you so you do not like. So you should provide an example which is confirmed by something, but you should provide an example of maybe even of particular migrants that have met some problems. Or, for instance, some particular problem of media which was closed, or something like that. So you have to touch heart of your audience with an example which will convince them. And then, deriving from an example, you can develop a story explaining what is a violation and what follows with that violation. That is a difference from analytical papers that you prepare from policy papers. In policy papers, you never have to touch hearts. In policy papers, you have just to provide dry analysis. In policy papers, you should never seek for examples. In articles, examples are very much needed. It is not like they must, but they are very welcome and sometimes needed by, particularly when you describe some complex issues. So then I promised you that I will have to switch back from text, let's say, domain to TV domain. In my example, in example of my media, when we invite some experts to write an article, we know that sometimes right after publication or after we publish their article in my media, they get an invitation of some TV channels or YouTube channels. Be prepared. If you are invited, you should reply that you are ready to go on air, to go to the studio if you are invited, or to find a technical possibility or to have video link with studio. You have to accept invitations. Me personally, I almost never accept them just because I'm not an expert. I do not need additional publicity because I'm published on daily basis in my paper. For you, it is important to create an image of an expert who is always ready. For instance, in Ukraine, in some spheres, we have even, let's say, bad experts who are not experts at all, but they are very popular because first, they are always ready. So TV channel knows that if they have to find a person who is ready to be on air in 20 minutes, this person is ready. And second, this person whom I refer to, that would not be ethical for me to name him, but it doesn't matter. Such examples do exist. So this person used to speak with simple phrases, provide audience with simple examples, and he speaks like a normal person, not like expert. That is what audience loves. That is what editors love. So my last suggestions: try to combine expert ability and ability to simplify. So you have to be able both to analyze, to provide policy suggestions, to provide some ideas, to provide a general view, so analysis, but at the same time you have to make this simple for audience, and you have to make this particularly simple for video audience. So hope you will manage that, and hope you will get success in the sphere that you have chosen for yourself.